Forward down the field, the Lions team that will not yield. And when the blue and silver wave, you stand and cheer the brave. Win the game, with honor you will keep your fame. So down the field again, Alliance victory.
Woo! All right, everyone. Welcome back to Sports Flow with BK and Speaks. This is one of the happier weeks that I've ever had as a Lions fan here.
No question, man.
This is exciting. For basically the first time in our entire life, the Lions are the kings of the North. They won the NFC North title. We've clinched it. We're in the playoffs. We got the home game. It's an exciting time to be a fan here.
Oh, dude, it's an amazing time to be a fan. I mean, I don't think you remember when we were 3 years old when the last time we won it. So we've been waiting for this literally our whole lives, and we finally done it. And thank you, Dan Campbell. Thank you, Brad Holmes. Thank you, Sheila Ford. Woo! Let's go, baby.
Coming up big for us. Lions end up clinching the NFC North title here with a win over the Minnesota Vikings this weekend. 30-24. And when you're talking about the management of the Detroit Lions, I mean, I don't know how I can be more happy with what they've done here. Sheila Ford said she was invested in turning this thing around and making the Lions a contender. And she brought in Dan Campbell, she brought in Brad Holmes, and they've kind of done the rest here. Yeah,
Sheila Ford really took it upon herself. You know, after the Patricia era, she said she was going to be, much more involved. She was going to take it, the bull by the horns, essentially. And she said, I'm turning this franchise around if it's the last thing I do. She made the proper hires, Brad Holmes, MCDC. Right when she interviewed MCDC, she said, this is the guy I want. Brad Holmes comes over. A lot of people know GM experience. Everyone wanted a bigger name with GM experience. What do you know? Look what's happening. It's all starting to come full circle, and I couldn't be more happy for the three of them. Give props when props is due.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is as exciting of a time as a Lions fan that we've had in an extremely long time.
Since getting Calvin Johnson or Barry Sanders.
And those guys were good. Like, we're talking about individual talents. But as a team, this is the best Lions team I've ever seen in my life.
Same.
As a full cohesive unit there. And I think it's awesome, too, that Dan Campbell has silenced every critic of around each turn that he's had here and becoming this head coach and building this thing. I mean, people were talking right out of the gates where he comes out in the racing helmet and all these different things, talking about biting kneecaps. They're like, this is a clown show.
Exactly.
What's this guy doing? Is he really the guy who's going to turn things around here? And all he's done is answer those questions, built this culture up, and here's where we are today.
Yeah, and he's got the right players to come in for him to be able to do this. He instilled the mentality into this organization, saying we need gritty players. We want players, who are for everyone. And he's brought these players in, and he's built a culture within, Detroit and the locker room there in the Motor City. And people want to come play for this guy. He's a player's coach, but he knows what it takes to win in the league because he's been there before. And he just, did it take him, a little bit longer? I mean, 3 years isn't that long, but for, us starving Lions fans, and then, with the 1-6 start last year, I mean, it just took a little bit for everything to start clicking, and now everything's firing on all cylinders. And, MCDC, congrats, baby. You deserve this, man. 30 fucking years. Yeah.
It's crazy, man. I mean, we're talking about a situation here where Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell take over 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Lions are kind of in the dumps at the time. We have some draft capital with moving out Stafford, but they've built this thing from the ground up, and they're having a ton of success even in the later rounds of these drafts with building this culture and building this roster.
Well, speaking of, Brad Holmes accepting that trade with the Los Angeles Rams, a lot of people wanted him to take the other trade to get 2 first-round picks in that draft, but he decided not to do that, and he wanted to, do the trade with LA, and he got the draft picks in the 2 drafts coming up, and look what's happened. It's been an amazing thing that he's put together there, and he envisioned it all, and it's really starting to come to fruition.
Absolutely amazing. You're
Yeah.
right. And the other side of that, too, is that he wanted Jared Goff. The
Yeah,
guy's
he
been a
did.
believer
when
in Jared Goff.
When no one else wanted him in the league.
Yeah, he was basically
Used goods.
getting thrown to the side by Sean McVay. Everybody's hitting the panic button on him. Brad Holmes says, no, I still believe in this guy.
Yeah.
Brings him over to Detroit, and he's just had success here.
Yeah, see, I mean, speaking of Jared Goff, completed 30 of 40 passes, 257 yards, 1 touchdown. He was high on a couple of balls and, didn't look downfield on a couple shots, but he did exactly what we needed him to do and was the game manager that we said, that he had to be. And, he produced for us.
Need him to be a game manager. And the way we win this game is by him not turning over the football.
Yep.
When you're talking about this defense didn't necessarily play the greatest against Nick Mullins,
No.
the young quarterback this weekend, but Justin Jefferson also plays a factor there.
Yeah.
Big time
Big
wide
factor.
receiver there. But we come up with 4 interceptions in this game, 2 by Kirby Joseph, 1 by Brian Branch, and 1 by Iffy Malafanu.
Woo!
And if Malafanu continues to be a playmaker here since earning the starting spot and was actually named the Defensive Player of the Week here in the NFC.
Yeah, 5 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 pass deflections, and 1 interception like you just, mentioned. I mean, we talked about him last week. Me and you said, hey, man, we see something special out of this guy. We now know why he, got moved up into the starting lineup. Injuries were a key factor as to why he hasn't been elevated to that starting lineup. And the little bit, these 2 games I've seen out of him, man, I'm really, really liking what I'm seeing. I think the upside is tremendous with him. And it's going to be interesting to see when, Deuce Gardner-Johnson gets back, how we're going to, piece him in there with, the likes of Kirby Joseph and Malafanu. I wouldn't mind seeing him, split opposite with his versatility. I know we liked him at the safety position, but moving him over to the other side with Sutton. What do you think about that?
His ability to be versatile in the secondary is huge here.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
He can play the corner. He can play the safety. And I think you make a good argument for him to play that other side of Cam Sutton there and keep Kirby and Malafanu there at the safeties with how good they've been playing. You put Brian Branch in the...
Can't take him out.
Yeah, exactly. You put him in the slot, and all of a sudden this secondary becomes a strength of this defense. And that's absolutely what we need with what we've been giving up in the passing attack.
Yeah, I mean, Mullins, you wouldn't like to see him have the game he did, being a younger quarterback. And, he threw the ball good, but he also was throwing the ball to the best wide receiver in the NFL who said he was going to put on a show for, it being, Christmas. He wanted to put on a show, and boy, did he ever. I mean, the boy's special. So, I mean, you can't look into that too much. When you got a wide receiver like that, it's like
Jefferson
Culpepper throwing
so
to Moss. It's just an unfair advantage. So, I mean, the fact that we got the job done, speaks volume to where we're going as a team right now.
Yeah, and I think when you're looking at the defense, too, and where we can improve a little bit, the pass rush was ineffective again this week.
Yeah.
The sacks that we came up with, Romeo Okara comes up big. He gets a sack for us. It's good to see him again.
Yeah.
He looks like he's getting healthy there. And then Malafanu comes up with 2 sacks on a blitz. And then also Brian Branch comes up with 1 too. And these guys are reaching for the ball. They're trying to force some turnovers, and it's great to see.
Aaron Glenn, good job, my man. Good job getting them back on track. We needed that. Hutch added 4 quarterback hits and a team high 6 pressures, in this win over the Vikings. Yeah, the number's not there with the sacks and the tackles. No, they're not, but he's doing everything right. That those are going to come, and especially, hopefully when we get Houston back, it's looking like the playoffs. But once you get someone else on the edge there, not to say, Couard's not, doing that, but I mean, it'll be nice to spread things out for him a little bit.
Oh, no question. I mean, the guy's getting double teamed most of the game, and he's getting chipped. I mean, Hutch is going through it just about every game he goes out there because he is that big of a pass rush threat. I mean, even with all these chips going on, everything happening to Hutch, he's still second in the league in quarterback pressures.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's still effective. It's just the fact that he's not getting the major statistics that goes along with it. But being a team player and providing what he's providing right now is huge for this defense.
Yeah, no, it actually absolutely was, and this was a full Kirby Joseph experience too. How about you? For what it's worth, Joseph looked like he was on another planet in the first quarter. The little early celebration wave. It's like, all right, Kirby, I love you to death, but my God, let's slow your roll a little bit. But he ended up leading the team with 9 tackles, knocked away 2 passes, and left, with 2 interceptions. Did have that early celebration, but he declined the interview after the game. Probably got ripped into a little bit by old Aaron Glenn and MCDC.
You got to think that he thought it was somewhat of a colligion game and the ball stopped.
It looked like him. I've never seen it. It's just like, you ain't Dion.
And then he's going down the field the other way. I mean, it was just insanity.
It was insanity, but it was fun to watch. I'm happy there was no turnover there. Not the smartest play in that position, but hey, we got away with it.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting to say the least. You never see that really in the game.
No, you don't. A guy I wanted to touch on. Speaking of our defense, Derek Barnes missed the game with the shoulder injury. So we used a combination of Alex Anzalone, Jack Campbell, and the guy I want to touch on, Malcolm Rodriguez. I thought he filled in really well. He hasn't, from being a starter last year, being second in the team in tackles, to, having to take a back seat. And, he did everything right. He's like, hey, if I want to get on the field, I'm going to have to, play multiple positions, move in the fullback. Did that amazingly when he's in there. Special teams is in there every down on special teams. And then, Trusty at fullback again this week. He was reading coverages, reading zones. And, he was making big tackles on the running backs. And I loved everything I saw out of Malcolm.
Yeah, really earning his spot on the 53-man roster. You're doing a lot of different things for this team. And, to not be forced to play linebacker, be able to do the special teams things, be able to work himself in on that offensive side. It's been huge for him and huge for the team.
Yeah, he had 3 tackles, including that picture-perfect open field tackle on fullback C.J. Ham to get the Vikings off the field. So that's the one I was referring to earlier. So, yeah, I just really liked what I saw, with him. And I had to touch on it because, you got to give props when props are due.
Absolutely. And speaking of props, we have to start talking about this running attack. Again, we are just pounding the football.
Pounding it, my man.
We had 32 carries this week between Montgomery and Gibbs for 135 yards. Gibbs has now become the 3rd rookie in Lions history to produce 1,000 scrimmage yards and 10 touchdowns. The other 2,
let's go.
Barry Sanders and Billy Sims.
Woo.
Pretty good names there. And that juke that Gibbs
man.
Barry-esque.
Barry-esque indeed, and then, Montgomery handled the dirty work, including some nice pass protection on a couple looks downfield. Montgomery added for 55 yards and 1 TD. So the 1-2 punch by the Lions is no joke.
It's tough for teams to contain.
Yeah.
They're 2 completely different backs back there. And Gibbs is providing that big play threat. He's still seeing the holes and creating these things. And Montgomery's just a bowling ball, man. He's running you over and he's getting 5 a carry, basically.
Yeah, and what's so cool about it, like when I was watching the game, I was like, this seems like prime Montgomery time. And what's, Gibbs doing in the game? And, come to find out, Montgomery wasn't hurt. He's like, no, Gibbs earned the right to be in there. He earned his, time in there and wasn't mad, that he wasn't getting, the touches that he was getting in, earlier in the season. The running game is exactly where, everyone said be patient. Gibbs is going to, get his touches. This is what we tried to do with DeAndre Swift, and we could never do because he'd get hurt and he'd get tired at the end of the season like he is with Philadelphia right now. Gibbs is getting stronger and excelling. And, Montgomery has been able to let him do that. And the trust in our team after that fumble early in the game to keep Gibbs in there, I really like that too.
Me too. I think you got to continue to try to get the guy more confidence. But it looks like the Lions have a bona fide star here in Gibbs. And it's exciting to watch on the offensive side. But a lot of our success coming on that offensive side has to do with this starting offensive line.
Yeah.
Adding a huge boost again, and the Lions are 5-0 when they play together.
Yeah, dude. Taylor Decker was understandably emotional after this win and clinching the division. It's
been a starting tackle for us for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. Starting tackle. He hasn't seen much success in, Detroit. And, after the game, he was just so emotional. He's like, it means so much more when you love the players that you're playing with and you're going to work with. He's like, these are going to be some of the strongest relationships I have in my life. These are my brothers. Dude, it was just I'm so happy for him because he won the game ball, got the game ball. Out of a lot of people, he's been there just like us fans through the bad and now the good. So Taylor Decker, I'm very happy for you, my
On top of that, I mean, he even said it in his interview how much that this means to give this to Detroit.
Yeah.
He knows how hard these fans have been cheering for them over these years and how hard that it continues to be with us having losing season after losing season. And finally, they've turned this around. And it was great to see him have that refreshing feeling where we have finally made it.
Yeah, no, it really was. I mean, Detroit's offensive line handed a tough task to Brian Flores, who is, by the way, an outstanding defense coordinator. In impressive fashion, too. Goff was hit only 3 times and sacked just one time. They weathered the storm on those early down blitzes and set the tone for controlling the day on the ground that exhausted the Vikings, man. It was picture-perfect game plan from top to bottom with us, man. It really was.
Perfect. And, I mean, let Goff set his feet like that, and he just doesn't turn over the ball. That's perfect game management. You talked about it earlier. And what helps Goff a little bit here, actually a lot bit, is St. Brown is on this roster.
Oh, and baby. Stud against the Vikings.
Yeah, Amra St. Brown.
Son of God. Baby.
Yeah, tongue twister there. But he has continued to produce at a high level, 106 receptions on 12 catches. And he's actually on pace for 125 receptions right now, which could be close to the league leading number by the end of the season.
Yeah, with his third down, play and over the middle, proving to be too much to handle for the shorthanded secondary there in Minnesota. He was on the same page when it matters most with Goff, with all the timing routes, and Goff trusts him, which makes our offense click like no other.
Yeah, it's easy to trust a guy, too, when he's always open.
Yeah,
right?
That's very true.
Like, St. Brown is just a playmaker here. And speaking of getting trust, I mean, Jameson Williams
he's coming up, baby.
Is starting to get a little bit of trust and a little bit of feel here with Jared Goff. And finally, he comes up with 5 receptions this week. It looks like they're incorporating him more in the offense here.
Sure does.
And it's adding a lot of speed, and I love to see it.
Well, he's carving a larger role, a little piece of the pie that we didn't have. And, you can't ignore him at this point. He's making catches that are extremely hard catches. He's making people miss in the open field with not much space. His speed, his improved hands, and understanding of the offense, it's opening up, more pages to Ben Johnson's offense playbook. And it's a lot of fun to watch thus far. And me and you have been, waiting for this, and it's been trending, and it just keeps building. So it's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, St. Brown J-Mo and St. Brown have become a staple in this offense, and having those two guys on the outside here gives Goff a lot of weapons to work with. And actually, for the first time ever here, this offense has been humming the entire season.
Yeah.
The Lions have a running back, a tight end, and a wide receiver that all have 8 touchdowns in the season. First time ever, and you got to love to see it with the young talent doing it.
Yeah, no, you got to. It's awesome. And, hey, props to Khalif Raymond. He didn't light up the box score, but Raymond had some tough catches with Goff throwing a little high a couple times. And we got to give props to Peoples-Jones, too. He had that big third down catch.
Big catch.
It was kind of a quiet day for our stud rookie, Sam Laporta. He was limited to 3 catches on 18 yards, but he handled all 3 of those looks and continues to look mighty comfortable as a blocker with the Lions, running the ball 36 times and putting the Vikings through the grinder.
Yeah, I mean, he's adding an effect there. Even if he's not making the plays on the outside, he's still a focal point of that defense. They're having to account for him. He's still a big part of this offense, and he'll continue to have success here as we keep moving forward.
Yeah, and then leading into next week, we got the Cowboys.
Tough matchup here.
Not a fan of the Cowboys. Never be America's team for me. BK, where do you see this game going, my man?
Well, we got Detroit is a 6-point underdog here this weekend at Dallas. Way. I think that's a high number too. I think Detroit's playing well. When you look at it, I mean, the one game that they lost this year by a large margin was to the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah. After seeing what they did to the San Francisco 49ers this weekend, who's a top dog in the NFC, it looks like the Ravens are just an elite group over there. But the Lions, 6-point dogs, the over-under set at 53.5 for the points on the game. My key players for this one is I'm thinking Gibbs and Montgomery are going to have a big game. They're going to have to control it on the ground.
I agree.
Be able to run this football against Dallas and kind of slow down this defense that kind of builds themselves off of big plays and turnovers.
They do. Turnovers, big.
Yeah, and when you're talking Gibbs and Montgomery, you got to look hand in hand with the offensive line is going to have to play big again too. Push around these guys, make the plays that they need to make in order to give Gibbs and Montgomery the shot to have that success. And then on the defensive side, Hutch is going to be a big factor here. Yep. He's going against kind of the weak spot there in the Dallas offensive line and Terrence Steele.
Yep.
It seems to be one of the things that the Cowboys reporters and the Lions reporters are kind of looking at this week. Kind of looks like a mismatch there. I'm hoping Hutch can get that pressure on Dak Prescott, force him into a couple mistakes here. But in the end, I think Dallas always gets some sort of call.
Boy, do they ever, especially at home.
At home, it just feels like it's consistent over there. I hope it goes the other way. I think it's going to be a very close game. But I got Dallas actually beating us this weekend 30-27.
Hey, man, I mean, I'm a lifelong Lions fan. We've played in Dallas. We know how these games go. The refs are not going to be on our side. I don't care if you throw a flag. Apparently, you can pick the flag up going back to the Pilligrew days. It's just you think you've seen everything until you see something. But
exactly.
The Cowboys are 15-1 over the past 2 seasons at AT&T Stadium. So it's going to be tough. But I think it's going to be 15-2 when the day's done. I got the Lions 38-35. Key players for the Lions, I got Jared Goff. I just want him to be a game manager again. Don't have any turnovers. I want to see Melifanu have the 3rd straight amazing game. I want him to keep building. And then a guy we touched on just a couple minutes ago. I think J-Mo might have his first big breakout game. Maybe go for 100 yards and a touchdown or 2. I think J-Mo's really going to excel in this game. He's a star, and he's about to play, at the Cowboys stadium where the lights are the brightest, and then
bright lights,
big bright lights. And then Jerry's world there. Cowboys, obviously, we got to shut down CeeDee Lamb. That's a guy we got to shut down. He's their stud wide receiver, 8-8 there. Dak, got to force some turnovers. Like we've talked about. If we win the turnover battle, we should be sitting pretty. And then we've got to figure out a way to stop Micah Parsons. Dude's just a glorified animal, stud, whatever you want to call him. He can do everything. Probably could play both sides of the ball if he really wanted to. Dude's just an absolute stud. So if we can shut those 3 guys down, I think we'll be, just fine. We've been stopping the running game all year. So I'm not really worried in that aspect. So that's who I have as my key players and my predictions.
Nice. Okay. When I look at it, I mean, CeeDee Lamb, you're not going to shut him down.
No, probably not.
You're going to contain him, and that's what we got to do is contain him because he's Dak's number 1 target over there. And if we're able to contain him, that could slow down their offense a great deal. Micah Parsons, we're just going to try to neutralize him as much as we can.
Yep.
The guy is going to be all over the field, but if we can keep him from making that big play, that's huge. And then when you're talking about the offensive side of the ball, I really like your take on Jared Goff. We also have to remember that this is an indoor game.
Yes, exactly.
In Dallas. And Goff notoriously does not play great in the cold weather, but he's going to get the opportunity to play indoors where the Lions have been kind of humming there offensively the entire season here.
Yeah, I mean, we have been humming offensively the entire season, and just as of late, we're really starting to, climb in the right direction. And it's going to be a fun game. And this is a big game, just as big as a game for Dallas as it is for us, and hence why it's on prime time Saturday, baby. I can't wait for this one to start.
Yeah, and when you're looking at it too with the playoff picture, I mean, the Lions are now 11-4. They're the same record as the San Francisco 49ers are.
And Philly.
And Philly. But Philly's got to see Dallas again this season one more time.
We could really, get that number 1 seed. Yeah, do some other, teams have to lose, such as Philly and, San Francisco, and we got to win out. Yes, but the possibility is there.
It's there. I mean, we need the Rams, which unfortunately we might draw the Rams in the playoffs. If we aren't to get that 1 seed. But if the Rams are to take down San Francisco and we take care of business here in Dallas, the Lions could have the 1 seed in the NFC, which is just an insane thought when you look at it.
Yeah, I mean, from, everyone, Philadelphia, being in the Super Bowl last year, and then, San Francisco and Brock Purdy up until this last game where he threw 4 interceptions, everyone, had him as odds-on favorite to be the MVP, and, the tune's all changed as it should have been from the beginning. I think it should be Lamar Jackson, but, we got a real shot at this, man, and anyone who says we don't, that they're not facing reality.
And I mean, when you look at it, we win this weekend, and all of a sudden that game for San Francisco versus the Rams becomes pretty high stakes.
Yeah, huge high stakes.
And the Lions might get the 1 seed. So we'll
see what happens.
Here's to hoping that we pull out the W here this weekend. We'll be back here next week to recap the Dallas game and dive into our predictions for the Minnesota Viking game. But thank you for joining us here on Sports Flow with BK and Speaks. We'll see you next week.
Go Lions!